Okay, thanks everyone for coming to the second session for the year. We're trying to do a few new things, so you might see this nice little yellow bar on the screen. We're actually managing to stream it to one person who wanted to come down from Hobbs this week. But that's because we just created the link invite this afternoon. So my name's Daryl Webster, one of the co-ordinators, co-organisers, etc. We've got Nick Westbrook and being with the board as well here, and our minder, Regan. So yeah, thanks for coming. We're going to take a good look at Azure ExpressRoute, and we've got Cordia coming to talk a little about that, and then Julian's going to follow up with a presentation too. But what we are trying to do with our new format is also keep it fresh, keep things changing a bit, and talk a little about what's been happening in the world of Azure, Office 365 and Cloud too. A little housekeeping though, if you do need to go and use the little boys' or little girls' room, we've got some tags hanging on the door there. If you just want to grab them, you will need to use them to get back through the glass guillotine and get back into our meeting. So we'll just introduce Nick up to give us some news, and take it away.
Thanks, Daryl. So hey everyone, I'm Nick, as Daryl mentioned, and today we're going to look at what's happened in the last month or so in the world of Microsoft Cloud and infrastructure stuff. So, the news. First thing I've got for you, more features for free in Azure AD. So before sort of mid last month, the 17th of the 2nd when this got announced, in order to do cloud user self-service password reset and sign-in page branding, you required Azure AD Basic or Premium subscription, whereas now Microsoft's actually made these two features free. So in the free version of Azure AD, you can now do sort of things like this. So you're probably familiar with the usual sort of login screen you get for Office 365. So now the free version of Azure AD.
Has anyone actually been to that place before? Yeah, you've seen it? Yeah.
Seen it?
Yeah, I've been friendly seen it, so you're taking a picture of myself.
Oh, I mean the actual place.
It really
exists. Oh, right. Okay.
My way exists?
Yeah. I thought you meant have you actually been to the login screen before? I was like, yeah. Nice. Yeah. So what you can do now is customize this branding to suit your needs. So something like that, which is the example Microsoft gave for Woodgrove University. So yeah, anyone can do this now. It's just a few lines of PowerShell pretty much. And if you follow the link that's on the slide deck, it'll tell you how to do it. Beyond that, Clutter gets better. So has anyone heard of the service Clutter?
Yeah, what's Clutter, mate?
Thanks, Daryl. So Clutter's actually, it's an awesome service. So what it does is it kind of acts like a spam filter, but it's within your mailbox. So there's a service in the back end that monitors how you use your mail. So it looks at the type of email messages that you actually read, and the email messages that you ignore, and the ones that you move away to different folders and that. So Clutter watches you do this and runs all that information through Azure Machine Learning. And based on the results it gets from that, it tries to work out which email messages you'd actually be interested in. So the theory is that you don't need to waste your time on emails that you don't care about, and it takes all the stuff you do care about to the top of your list, so you can actually action it.
So if you never read the emails from your boss,
yeah,
eventually they'll go into Clutter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So what it does is it creates a Clutter folder, kind of like your deleted items folder or your inbox folder or junk mail folder or whatever, and it just moves all the stuff it thinks is Clutter into that Clutter folder. So the improvements that have been made lately, you're able to set retention policies on the Clutter folder now. So if you're used to administering Exchange, that means that you can say if an email is in there for longer than 30 days, you can delete it, or if it's or send it to another folder or whatever you want. So basically whatever rules you want, you can put onto the Clutter folder now. Beyond that, you can also set bypass rules for specific senders or messages. So, like for Brendan's example, if it thinks that your boss's email, you never actually read it, and it's going to put it into Clutter, your company admin can actually override that at the server level and say any email sent from this user must never go to Clutter. to make sure it sits there in front of you.
Can it make you read it?
No, it can't make you read it. That's still up to you. Yeah. And you can also personalize Clutter notification emails. So sorry, the last one, that was just an example of the Exchange Admin Center, how you can now go in and set those rules for Clutter. And the personalization of the emails, it's pretty much something like that. So because Clutter works across all devices, not just like your main big Outlook client, all the notifications it sends you have to come through email, so you can actually see what it's been doing. Up until now, those messages were pretty generic, didn't have much branding at all, whereas now you're actually able to set your company logo in the bottom and set a send from address as well, so it looks like it's more legit coming from your company rather than some magical Microsoft service out there.
So Clutter was, it turned up if you're on the first release program for Express 12, you turn that on.
Mm-hmm.
Is Clutter still in preview or what it is?
I'm taking it must be GA by now.
So it's coming through to tenants that are not on first release currently.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
so it's been on first release probably about 2-3 months ago.
Yeah. Now the key thing about this feature too is that it's down to the person to turn it on in their own mailbox. So it's not something that's just going to appear and start throwing mail in a Clutter folder and everyone has to get used to that. You can communicate with your staff and say this is a feature, this is how you turn it on in Outlook Web Access. And we have seen mixed results. So it is getting better at how it reads people's habits, but for some people, the way that they read the email, maybe they've got email rules that will deal with that email flow already, it will allow those to take priority. So
the person who just has an inbox and doesn't do anything with mail, Clutter will probably be quite helpful.
Yep.
It's going to move to it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're sort of marginally organised and use rules to put in valid folders, Clutter ignores things that go out of the inbox because you're already processing.
Cool. So that was all pretty exciting news. Next up, Azure RMS Migration Toolkit is available. Is anyone here using AD RMS at the office? Yeah, a few of you. So if you've been thinking about leveraging Azure RMS and getting rid of your on-premises RMS infrastructure, which I know Julian's smiling because we're busy doing that process at the moment at Provoke, there's a lot more help available now. And Microsoft's actually given a pretty good website and a set of resources which allow you to do this a lot easier. And one of the main benefits of it is that it allows you to retain access to all your data that's already protected and migrate your policies from on-premises into Azure RMS sort of pretty seamlessly, and then just remove your on-premises equipment.
RMS should be turning up in more customers because Microsoft's busy selling kind of a group of plans called EMS, and the way that they're selling that's Azure AD Premium, that's Intune and RMS. Those are kind of the three products that sit in that SKU. And so a number of companies are buying EMS, and as a consequence they're trying to work out what they're doing with Azure AD Premium, what they're doing with Intune and what to do with RMS. And sort of RMS hasn't probably been that well understood, because historically there's been a bit of lifting to get it going in your infrastructure. You need to set up your own RMS infrastructure. And as soon as you leave your infrastructure and can't connect to it, and you've got an RMS encrypted email, for example, on your mobile device, you can't read it. If your laptop, for example, can't set the mail that RMS server, it can't access it. So by this service moving to Azure, it's more easily available.
Sorry, I should have asked, does anyone not know what RMS is? Don't be embarrassed. Okay, sweet. So it stands for Rights Management Service. And essentially what it does is it protects content. So you can say, this email message or this Word document or this PDF file, I only want these users to be able to see it. And if they can see it, I only want this subset of users to be able to print it. Or only these users can actually save it somewhere else. So it's very fine-grained with what it can do to allow specific users specific sort of actions on different types of data.
And in addition to that, it authenticates the person and their rights every time they access that asset. So if someone goes and copies the whole of your internal file system onto their portable drive as they resign from the business, and then go to a new company and that company's RMS and they go and try and open it, then you've disabled their AD account, they can't open the content anymore. So it inspects it whenever they try to open it.
Sure.
So,
Yep.
I just wondered, what sort of complete copy would that be? If you did a file by file copy, you wouldn't have that protection, would you?
So if you've RMS a bunch of content, so you apply the policy and it'll be sitting in SharePoint or it'll be sitting on a file system, and someone goes Control A, Control C, copies it.
Like just a folder.
There you go, yeah, they'll copy all the files, they'll have all the files, but they'll be encrypted. And when they go and open that file, RMS, they'll say, cool, we need to get the RMS token to see whether you're open or not. And if they can't access that, they can't open it.
The cool thing is the RMS data status file and move the file.
So what about
around.
doing wanting to access offline, like when you're on the plane or something, that copy?
So that's one of the challenges is yeah. So with RMS, part of the challenge with RMS is actually you do a little bit of good sort of planning around it. And you don't by default RMS everything, because that puts a burden on the user, and so you're not going to RMS the hello world document, but you're probably going to RMS the content that's IP, or content that's potentially under NDA, or maybe you might be doing a competitive bid for a sales proposal, and that gives the competitor, you might RMS that. So that you need to sort of, and you can create policies so it's easier for them to do as well.
Cool. All right, moving on. New features in Azure Backup. So this is pretty key. Azure Backup now supports 99-year retention periods. So the reason for that is Microsoft's helping you replace your tape storage. So generally with Mac backups, you would take a tape backup maybe every month and keep that for posterity in case you ever need to go back to that snapshot point in time. So with Azure Backup, you can now replace the tape functionality by going directly into the cloud. By doing that, yeah, Regan.
I saw another announcement today was changing the pricing.
Oh yeah.
The changing the price per particular server instance. I think it's $12 a month for every 500 gigs that you back up.
Wow. Cool. Yeah. So good value for way the cost of.
Back up your whole thing and then you back up. But
yeah, exactly.
the rights to data are probably like $40 a month.
Cool. Offline seeding. This is pretty cool. So if you've got a lot of data, say terabytes of data, that's on premises and you want to start using Azure Backup, it was always a pretty big hurdle to try and get all that data backed up to the cloud in the first place. So what you can actually do now is leverage the Azure Import-Export service, which means you can take a copy of that data on a BitLocker hard drive, send the hard drive to your local data center, so Sydney or Melbourne. They actually import all that data into the Azure storage for you. Yeah, and then you can pretty much just back up changes from there.
So is Microsoft now guaranteeing 99-year backwards app component and data component?
Don't work for Microsoft. Yes, they are.
Yeah, nah. So I'm pretty sure if you were still running as a backup in 99 years' time, they would allow you to to get that data down.
They'll probably provide you a holographic dot or something in 99 years' time.
Yeah, true. Also, all VPN workloads are now supported. So previously you couldn't back up things like SharePoint or Exchange, whereas now you can. And there's a new SCOM management pack available for DPM Azure Backup stuff, which provides much better monitoring and reporting. So if you're using it, download that. It'll be great. Office 365 Partner App. I've got a bunch of news today. So if you haven't seen this, has anyone heard of this before? So it's an app for your phone that allows you to manage Office 365 stuff. No? Yeah. So basically, it allows you to check the mobile management of your customers' Office 365 tenants. So if you have delegated admin on any tenants, it allows you to see all of them. It allows you to check service health, so see how Exchange Online is functioning, SharePoint Online, Link Online, all the different services in Office 365. And it allows you to follow up on service requests, which is pretty awesome for my team, at least at Provoke, because we often raise service requests on behalf of our customers, and we can be sitting at home and Microsoft Philippines rings you up at 8 p.m. and says, oh, I want to help you out with this. So to just bring up your phone and be, oh yeah, that's the service request, I can help you with that, let's talk. It's a lot easier than having to dash to a computer somewhere. So that's just a few screenshots of the app. So it's available on Android, iOS, and Windows Phone. So if you have Office 365 tenants, it's probably an awesome idea to actually download it. You can keep track of what's going on. I think this is possibly the last one. So Office 365 gets more certified. So recently, Office 365 has picked up 2 additional certifications. So the ISO 27018 certification, which essentially ensures the protection of personally identifiable information. So independent auditors out there have gone into the Office 365 data centers and ensured that all their requirements are being fulfilled in this regard. In addition to that, they've also got High Trust certification, which read up on this afternoon, and it's something about healthcare organizations. So it's similar to HIPAA, I think, the HIPPA, which I think Azure is already certified in. But essentially, healthcare organizations have a lot of requirements, obviously, around personally identifiable information, since it's all medical and pretty sensitive. So, yeah, Office 365 is now a trusted platform to actually hold that information. So if medical organizations use SharePoint Online to store that, that's all certified now. That's a good. Oh yeah, last one. So there's a new security white paper for Azure networking. So if you do any Azure architecture work and are concerned about security, like a lot of our customers are, version 3 of the white paper is now out, which includes the latest changes to that Microsoft have actually made to the Azure services and the Azure platform. So it pretty much allows you, it gives you guidance on how to use the inbuilt security in Azure to protect your data and to protect ingress and egress from your subscriptions. Whereas, like, if you had to do that on premises, the effort that has to go through to go there by managing your own firewalls and load balances and networking and all that, a lot of that stuff's done for you already in Azure. You just need to know where to go to enable things to ensure that you're protected. So if you are architecting any new services, it's a good place to start to ensure that everything's secure. And that's me. That's the wrap up for the news. 15 minutes, a little bit over, but there's a lot to get through. So I'll hand back to Daryl.
I've got a little idea for some interaction. So we've got the experts here apparently, but before they get up and tell us the answer, who wants to get a T-shirt and tell me what ExpressRoute is, and we'll see if you're kind of right with defining it. So does anyone feel like a T-shirt? Yeah. What's ExpressRoute? Oh, you gave us the T-shirt. We haven't got your side. What's ExpressRoute? I mean, you must have been interested because you came along, unless you just want a pizza.
Behind new service offering with a new data center that is also forms for life.
It's part of it. What do you think it does, Tony?
Also, we probably just have some like new service like Clutter for Mailbox. And then you have something like Office 365.
It's kind of in the name, isn't it? ExpressRoute. So it's about getting that data there quicker. And we're really happy that we've got new data centers over in Sydney. It'd be nice if we had some in the land of the long white cloud, but for some reason people don't want. We're not there yet. But yeah, welcome. Did anyone have any other guesses or ways of it? Should we give Tony a T-shirt anyway for having a go? Yeah. Right. Tony, you're about a medium. Welcome, Stephen and Regan.
Cool. Well, evening, everybody. So we've got 3 people on the list there, so I have to give Simon's apologies. He was taken sick at the last minute, so I'm taking his place here. But so myself, Richard, I'm from Cordia IS Group. If you like, we are a between myself and Regan, we've got both sides of the equation here tonight, because Cordia is a provider of ExpressRoute connectivity into Azure, and Cordia IS is a consumer of that. So we, as Cordia IS, we take ExpressRoute services from Regan, or Regan's team, to connect us into Azure. So I'll go through some details about exactly what that all is, what it entails. We'll talk about our experiences with that, things that have gone right, things that have gone wrong, how we find it works, and so forth. So just as a brief overview, what is ExpressRoute? So this is hopefully answering that question that could have won you a T-shirt. So it effectively creates you a private connection into the Azure data center from your on-premises or from your existing WAN cloud service. So at the moment, you may connect into Azure through the internet, maybe through an IPsec VPN. What this does is it allows you to create a dedicated circuit, so effectively a lease line or part of your MPLS infrastructure that you may have, and take this straight into Azure. And this gives you the benefits of security, so you're not going across the internet. You've got better latency and throughput because it's a dedicated circuit just for your traffic. It's a virtual circuit or a fixed speed circuit straight into Azure. And this can be delivered in a number of ways. It can come straight into your existing on-premises, so straight, let's say, into your existing data center. Or you could bring it into, maybe you've got a private WAN service, an MPLS cloud that connects your offices around the country. It can be delivered into that, and that's where Microsoft present this concept of two different delivery mechanisms. They're called Exchange Service Provider and Network Service Provider. And when you read the documentation, it's a little bit unclear exactly how that applies to the way the service is available in Sydney and within this part of the world, because a lot of it's based around the services that you can get in America, and we've got AT&T and British Telecom and all these big players providing all sorts of managed services. Whereas the delivery in this part of the world is mainly through Equinix as a service provider. So when they start talking about things like Exchange Service Provider and Network Service Provider, it basically just means, how do you want that connectivity into Azure delivered? Do you want it to come direct to your premises? And that's what they call the Exchange Service Provider, where they bring the cable straight to your data center or your office. Or do you want to take it as a network service provider, where you have somebody like Cordia who can provide it as part of an existing IP VPN service? So it's just another leg off your MPLS cloud or something like this. And you don't need to worry about any of the routing or the BGP. It just appears there as another leg. Now this diagram is a little bit unclear. It's a screenshot actually taken from Microsoft's documentation. So I'll just cover. We've got, this says Customs Network, so this represents what you have already. This will be your connectivity provider. So this is either your connectivity into an existing WAN service that you have, your MPLS, or it'll be the demarcation point of a tail circuit that's just a point-to-point connection. And then you've got this pipe in the middle, which is effectively the ExpressRoute circuit, and this is a dedicated service to you that will allow you to take your data from your on-premises into Azure. And then you've got the Azure Edge, which is effectively a virtual router. And then you've got two types of service. You've got public services and you've got private services. And the difference between the two is that your private services is where you're going to put your private it's where you're going to route your private addresses, your 10, your 172 addresses, these types of things. And you have your own instances of your virtual machines in there. You have your offloaded web services, or your mail server, or your SQL databases, or whatever it happens to be. Effectively, if you're migrating your data center into the cloud, it will go into the private cloud part of it. The public services is where Microsoft are offering their public product offerings, such as things like Remote App, like their file storage services. I have to say we don't consume those ourselves at the moment, so I couldn't tell you exactly what is part of that. I know that Office 365 is not included in that at the moment, but through that public tiering you can get access to other types of services like the file stores and things like this.
So can you reach the public services through the ExpressRoute, or can you only get to the public services over the internet?
No, you go to them via the ExpressRoute. Well. So we'll go into a bit of detail further on, but essentially you set up two connections into Azure. One's for private, one's for public, and you can connect to anything that's on the Australasian continent within Microsoft through that public peering connection. Thanks. I'll hand over to Regan for this next bit.
Cool. So I'm Regan. I'm one of Cordia's network architects responsible for our IP platforms and products. And so I've just got a couple of slides on how we've implemented ExpressRoute from a network perspective. So we've got a diagram over there. It shows our Auckland to Sydney network. We've essentially got two providers that we use with a layer 2 circuit. A layer 2 circuit from each, between two Cordia nodes going across to two routers in Equinix. And we connect to redundant Equinix switches, which goes on to Azure. Or is it Azure? Is it Azure or Azure? Somebody know? Or is it? Azure. Okay. Azure with our routers. Okay. So we've also got direct peering with Microsoft over in Equinix for Microsoft 365 and also locally in New Zealand as well. And of course, product manager maybe put that in there. But we've got dedicated connections to a number of other providers, another number of other cloud providers. Microsoft Azure. So this is sort of what Richard was talking about the different options for Exchange versus network connectivity, and there's some subtleties around that. So it's not just one or two, but there's sort of a number of flavors. So, and Richard, correct me when I get this wrong. So BGP to the Cordia PE basically means you're getting a feed directly into your WAN, which means that's the network service provider. The network service provider. Thank you. BGP to the customer device, or the Cordia's managed firewall, is the exchange service provider. So it's going all the way to you. So you've obviously got public routes and private routes, and apparently, does Microsoft say you need to use both? Correct?
That's the recommendation. Yeah. So I guess what's kind of missing a little bit from this slide is it's just an overview of how the whole thing connects together, which may have been the last diagram, but effectively you get the private connection into the cloud, into Azure, the ExpressRoute connection. And then once that's established, then you have to set up all the routing on top of that. So effectively you have to create a BGP session that runs between a device, either in your own private cloud WAN service or on premises. Maybe you've got your own firewall or you've got your own router. And that BGP happens between that device and Microsoft. And another BGP session happens between that device and Microsoft for the public. So you've got the private BGP and you've got the public BGP. You don't have to take both, as we've found, but the recommendation is that you do take both, obviously because you've got access to their public-facing services like the storage and remote app and stuff like this. But if you just want to consume for migrating virtual machine loads into the data center, then you can just get away with just the private stuff. I don't think there's any real difference in how it's ordered. When you come to configure it, you just say, "Oh, create a new public one, create a private one." It's all part of the same service.
Nice. And of course, the VPN is recommended as a backup, so you can get that via a standard internet service, or get a premium internet service that's got direct connectivity to Microsoft. So I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, sure.
For the next section.
So, first of all, did that give an overview of what ExpressRoute itself actually is? I mean, in summary, it's a dedicated cable. Just connects your data center into Azure. The benefits are just, obviously, it's dedicated in terms of latency, in terms of speed, and things like this. So, the process of ordering it is sometimes a bit confusing when you read the documentation. I mean, the whole product itself is quite new in this region. I mean, it's been around for a while, as we all know, but it's just recently come out of preview. I think 3 or 4 months ago was it we stood ours up? So yeah, so the actual experience in the region, is a little bit tricky to find precedents and stuff. But when you read the documentation, there's a lot about how you configure with PowerShell, how you do this in the GUI and so forth, and there's a lot of commands and things like this. But it essentially boils down to just a few steps, which can be quite easily documented and you can be led through that process quite straightforward. There's not a huge amount of variables in it. Effectively, you have to create an Azure account create a subscription and order the service through Azure. So you go into you launch a PowerShell up, so you've got to install PowerShell and these sort of things, and you launch a PowerShell and you type a command that says get dedicated circuit, or you can type get dedicated circuit providers, and it lists all the people that will provide you with that circuit. You pick one, and for Sydney, the only option is Equinix. It's in an Equinix data center, and everybody that connects to Microsoft through there has to go through Equinix. So you go into your PowerShell and you say, yep, I want to order my service, I want it to be this speed, I want it to go through Equinix. And out of that, it will spit a service key, 32 characters or so of just text. Once you've got that, the service order is already now registered within Microsoft. So you then come to a service provider such as Cordia, you give them that service key and say, I now need a dedicated circuit providing or an ExpressRoute configuring. Here's my service key, and then you just leave it to the service provider, which will then go and provision that for you. So that could entail putting a circuit into your premises if you don't have it already, or connecting it into your existing MPLS WAN that you may have, and then all the logical back-end processing of the VLANs and all that sort of delivering it to the port at the router. That takes anything a couple of days, couple of weeks, depending, I think, on what it is you're exactly ordering. Once that's all done, then you can start setting up the routing and things like this. And again, this is more PowerShell, a couple of commands to tell it what IP addresses you want to use. So you need to give an IP address for your end of the BGP and their end of the BGP, and then tell it what routes you want to advertise, what prefixes you want to advertise over that BGP. And again, this is all PowerShell commands, and you type them and it spits out a response. And then once that's done, you then go into the Azure portal itself, and you start configuring your virtual networks in there, which effectively tells Microsoft what they're going to advertise back to you over the BGP session, so you can reach your Azure private cloud. And then a final step, once it's all set up and we see the BGP come up, you can see routes being exchanged, you just issue a final PowerShell command which links the whole thing together, and routing all starts working. So, yeah.
So, I missed the previous slide. If you're a company, if you're not using Cordia for your infrastructure, for example,
yep,
but maybe you've got capacity in one of the peering exchanges, can you just connect through BGP through Cordia to ExpressRoute through like an API or a Wix or something?
Not for ExpressRoute, because you're still going to write public infrastructure. Then the whole concept is that it's a private circuit. So although the whole thing end to end is layer 3 effectively, the ExpressRoute part of it is a layer 2 circuit between Microsoft and either your WAN or your router on premise. Okay, so just a couple of questions that we preempt may be asked. So these are the things that we've found out when we've been using it ourselves. The first thing is, what sort of latency can we expect? So we see about 26 milliseconds round trip. So that's from Auckland across to Sydney, back again. We've got a machine actually in Azure Cloud, and it's powered on, Windows machine, wherever we can ping it, we give this type of response time. Layer 2, layer 3. So the question sometimes we get asked is, can I just stretch my existing on-premise LAN into Azure? And the answer is no. It has to. It's a routed connection. It's layer 3 totally. You can't put a VLAN stretch a VLAN from your premises into Azure. You have to go to subnet and route it. That's what the whole BGP is about. And then the next 2 points about multiple ExpressRoutes, multiple subscriptions. Basically, it says that you can have multiple subscriptions to one ExpressRoute and multiple ExpressRoutes to a single subscription or multiple subscriptions. It's quite flexible. So if you have an ExpressRoute in there installed, you can repurpose it for other subscriptions that you may have.
So Azure subscriptions, yeah?
Yeah.
And do they need to be under the same agreement, or just any Azure subscriptions and just provide a subscription key?
I don't know the answer to that. Our experience is that we've really just used it with just the one subscription. Actually, no, we did use it with 2 subscriptions. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I can I'll probably find that one out and just answer that.
What does it mean by subscription?
So, can you help me out on this one a little bit?
So inside Azure, you have an Azure subscription, and so for example, if you go buy an enterprise agreement off Microsoft, it's actually kind of multi-layered. So you have an enterprise agreement, and then you create accounts under that, and accounts, and then you can create subscriptions under that. So a subscription is basically a container in Azure that translates to a bill. And so you might say, I'm going to create a subscription for production, I'm going to create a subscription for UAT and FD. And those are isolated. They don't talk to each other. You can get to talk by putting a site VPN between them, but they're kind of separate Hyper-V hosts would be one way to think of it.
So what would be the purpose of having multiple ExpressRoutes one subscription? Is that to improve speed or something?
So this is maybe where you've got two locations you want to connect it into, for example. So you've got one head-end agreement, one account where all of your virtual machines are, but you want to connect it to site A and site B, maybe for your own redundancy like this. So you have two circuits into the Azure cloud, but you want it all managed within the same subscription.
Could you also use it for redundant ExpressRoute providers?
I don't see why not. I mean, the provider is kind of agnostic to this whole process. You know, it could be through anybody. At the end of the day, it's just a cable with some BGP.
I assume a Cordia ExpressRoute connection would be a redundant path in your network somewhere to Azure.
Oh, yeah.
But you could perhaps buy a ExpressRoute from Cordia and one would snap and one goes down, the other one will.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like you do with ISPs, BGP between two different ISPs.
So that might be one reason to have multiple ExpressRoutes on
exactly.
Yep. Can I just clarify something?
Yeah.
The only challenge with that is who are you buying your transfers and territories?
So we have multiple providers, Dan. So
it could be a challenge there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you need to look at what you're doing. Although, with as you know, you've got multiple layers and dealing with the network. You've got your electronics and your fibre and that kind of thing, and service management is a key aspect of that. But yes, certainly we've got multiple providers, and so you do want to ask your service provider who they use. To make sure you don't have any single points of failure. Everybody says, we've got redundancy, but maybe they're using the same Southern Cross cable, for instance, or something.
Do you guys have any live on that data centers around the country?
Sorry to hear, what, sir?
Any data centers that are kind of able to be connected? So customers will have kept sitting in data centers.
So you're talking about Spark or Datacom or IBM or whatever?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, we've got a suite of sort of 20, 25 data centers around the country that we
use. Using ExpressRoute?
No, not using ExpressRoute. So ExpressRoute is pretty new for us. We've been doing it for about 3 months, and our internal people are our first customers. Definitely. I mean, we can deliver it to anywhere in the country. For sure, any of our 100 sites we can go to, but it's certainly only one so far.
Julian can talk to that with regards to what he's about to do.
Yeah.
There's two more about to go live on it, but as you know yourself, Dan, it's not around where it's delivered to, it's the fact that it's delivered, it's live, it's there, ready to go. It's my job to sell it. That's reality about that.
You say the latencies. Can you expect what other benefits do you get from ExpressRoute?
So you've got dedicated bandwidth. It's the usual things you get from any dedicated circuit. You've got your dedicated bandwidth, you've got dedicated latency and jitter.
So you could buy a 1 gig circuit. Would you get 1 gig throughput on that circuit? Or would it just depend what you buy?
If you bought a 1 gig, then you get 1 gig. Yeah, no, definitely.
So you get that all the way through to Australia?
Yeah, so there's a number of different things that you buy when you buy Azure, and correct me if I get this wrong. So you buy the Azure bandwidth, which is I think 200, 500 or 1,000, and then you buy WAN connectivity over to Sydney, and so those are two separate things. But if you buy a gig WAN connectivity and a gig of Azure, then you get a gig.
Okay, that last point, you can connect 10 Azure virtual networks. So this is just an internal. I don't want to say it's a limitation. It's just a setting that you have. Like within Azure, there's certain default limits that you can have in terms of I think there's a number of cores per virtual machines and all these sorts of things that I think can be altered if you just email support and ask them to increase it. But the default is you can have 10 Azure Virtual Networks, which is basically 10 different subnets inside your virtual, your private cloud in Azure. Okay, so a few more bits. I think the biggest concern that we had when we implemented this was security. It pretty soon dawns upon you, if you've got a connection from your own private WAN, as we have, we've got our own corporate WAN provided by Cordia, and then we have a link from that straight into Azure. So within that link, the way we have it configured, there's no space to have firewalls or any security devices. And this was interesting, what you're saying about the security white papers in the news. I'll have to go and read that because this could be of interest. But you've got this link which is routers and no security on there at all, and you're going into a data center which implicitly has internet connectivity from the outset. When you create a virtual machine in there, it automatically creates endpoints for RDP connectivity from the internet. So you spin up a virtual machine, it can route to your internal network, but at the same time it's got connectivity straight out to the internet. So anybody with a bit of hacking experience could take advantage of this. So this is a big concern. And the second thing as well is the security of your Azure portal. So you, as myself as an administrator, or people within your team as an administrator, you log in with username and password, but that's only so secure. And if someone were to compromise those details, then they've completely got access to your internal network. They can spin up virtual machines, they can create all sorts of connectivity, and you're totally exposed. So it's a big concern on how you deal with that, and one of the things that we're looking to as our corporate IT is to move our connection from going straight into our WAN, just as a leg off of our existing MPLS, into one of the Cordia's managed firewalls, so that we've got that checkpoint that we can then put rules in and say what does go in, what doesn't go out, and so forth, before it then comes into our corporate WAN. Other things you can do is you can put multi-factor authentication, so you can use Azure AD. You can create a token-based authentication for your accounts and stuff, and that's something that it's probably one of the most recommended things I would say to do in the outset when you're putting this all together. We did the same when we did AWS. We've done the same with Azure, so it makes a lot of sense. It's not difficult to do, but it gives you a lot of peace of mind of that side of things. And then I suppose the network connectivity, WAN diversity, and this is the point where we're just talking about different express routes and so forth. Okay.
Thank you. So we've put together a checklist for you about what you should look for in an ExpressRoute provider, the WAN provider to get to ExpressRoute. So the first is that you want known and consistent performance. You don't want it to be slowing down at 2 p.m. And you want it to be something, you want it to be sort of 26 millisecond type thing. And you need it to be resilient to Azure, so resilient connectivity over to the Azure cloud. Best latency is kind of like the first point there. You want it to be known and best network performance over to Sydney. And in terms of the network provider versus exchange provider options, you basically want to know whatever your choice of connectivity is into Azure, whether you want it delivered into your WAN or delivered directly to you, to a firewall, managed firewall. You want to know that your provider can give you all of those options to meet your needs. And finally, if you are putting mission critical services up there, you want to make sure that your WAN service is being proactively monitored and that it itself is resilient. You don't want your WAN going down and losing 4 or 5 hours of productivity for your whole business because everything's in the cloud. And of course, Cordia ticks all those boxes. Goes without saying.
Question. How many boxes you haven't put up there?
Probably, quite probably, yeah. I'm sure there are other things that you should look for. Friendly people, good personality.
Salesman will buy you beers.
Yeah, exactly. So, does anybody have any questions, or can you think of any use cases or anything for how to use ExpressRoute? Yeah.
So with the public route,
Obviously, that would route, say, from Azure to Sydney, so you choose one destination location. If you needed to access any of the other Azure data centers, does that traffic flow with Microsoft Backbone to get to them? No, it doesn't. Or live here and just go on the internet again?
So yeah, this was a point actually I had to clarify before today because I had the same question. But no, what they will do, they'll advertise just routes that are within continent, so basically Australian routes. So if you want to get to Azure US, then you still want to go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And the public IP addresses, are they sort of your organization's public IP addresses that you sort of routed over to Azure, or are they Microsoft public IP addresses?
So actually, there's two possibilities with that. So you can advertise your own public addresses. They will take anything from /29.
Okay.
And
do they advertise them onwards, or do they sort of keep it in there so from the outside, New Zealand first, then Australia?
Yeah.
Or would they get local routing?
I doubt I don't think they'd re-advertise that. I don't know is the answer, but I would, because they'd be ended up being a transit provider if you did that there, which, yeah. But the other option I was going to say is that they will also NAT for you, which I learned, which is kind of them. So if you send any private addresses over your public, they will NAT it with one of their addresses.
Sorry, one last thing. So then, why would you want to access the Microsoft public addresses? Because if you're accessing them through ExpressRoute, you're incurring costs for everything going across your ExpressRoute. Whereas if you're connecting to them over the internet, you actually wouldn't be incurring those costs.
Yeah. So internet's free and ExpressRoute. Yes. So.
Inbound traffic on ExpressRoute is free.
Yeah, inbound traffic anyway. So you're accessing stuff.
What's the core benefit of Express routing into Sydney rather than somewhere domestic?
Than somewhere
domestic inside New Zealand.
So all this is about connectivity into Azure. And Azure isn't in New Zealand.
Yeah. So if and when Azure is in New Zealand, will it be the same or a different price to ExpressRoute into Azure?
Price-wise, I don't know.
Are we paying a premium to go into Australia, or are we paying a discount to go into Australia, or?
So, I mean, at the end of the day, so it's kind of linked to this last question. Why do you want to go over the internet versus why do you want your private? So you get all the points that we've mentioned there, the latency, the digital, and that sort of stuff. What we've found as corporate, I'm talking as corporate IT here, is that having that dedicated ExpressRoute connectivity is good to offload the bandwidth, because we've got people that are building our SAP environment, for example, in Azure right now, our SAP DR, and there's a lot of stuff they're copying. They're copying virtual machines, they're copying databases and all sorts of stuff. They've got 50 megs of bandwidth to play with, and they just copy it up, and I don't care as the network impacting on my internet connectivity. They can get there. We've got consultants in that may help, so they can get the job done in a time they're not being impacted by our internet use.
And so how might it benefit a company like, say, for instance, just not long ago, we used Zestri. Zestri said they deployed everything into the cloud and paid it. Now, if they were deploying with ExpressRoute into Sydney and wanting to leverage being in the cloud with their units in other countries like Europe and China, for example, can they ExpressRoute, where are they ExpressRouting to from, say, China or Europe, back into Sydney or otherwise?
So it's going to depend on the connectivity that they have in China and where have you. So they could create an ExpressRoute from their office in China into I don't know what the most local point would be, Singapore or something, Hong Kong, for them there. So if they didn't have that, then they'd be accessing over the internet or over a VPN. If they did have an ExpressRoute, then they get the same service. They just get the benefits of better performance.
So Hong Kong would be syncing with Sydney, right?
So that's all down to the application layer. If you've got an application that's based on machines in Sydney and machines in Hong Kong, that would need, I don't believe there's any Microsoft level replication of that. I think you'd need to have that at your application.
Certain services do. So each Azure data center has a sister data center. So Singapore and Hong Kong sync to each other, they language to each other, and Sydney and Melbourne likewise. but you have to architect it to actually take advantage of that. So the storage subsystem will fail over if you're using that sort of version of storage. So there's like locally redundant storage, zonal redundant, and globally redundant. So if you're choosing the correct way of redundancy and the entire data center in Hong Kong goes down, it will fail over to Sydney. I mean, not to Sydney, to Singapore. And then you can start up your VMs from there. But you actually have to sort of architect that a bit. It's not like a quick magic button.
So to your question, initially you were saying about paying premium to get to Sydney. And sure, my colleagues from Snap will back me up on this. We're all beholden to Microsoft. But it wasn't in Australia that we put a direct circuit in from Cordia to Singapore, because internet was just so backwards to Sydney. So we paid for a direct circuit to give the same benefits. It was ExpressRoute to Singapore, we just did that. Because we were beholden to Microsoft.
Microsoft is relatively fair to the States and Japanese and London.
Yeah.
We're going to move a garden path to get there. So.
Correct, so we put that in because it was needed. 6 months later, if this ends up in Australia, that's now, that's fine. But as a telco, we're just trying to meet the need of the people and the organisation. Yes, God forbid if Microsoft ever brings Azure to New Zealand, that ExpressRoute for New Zealand-based organisations is one better way to go. But equally, will they ever bring it here? Who knows? Beyond my knowledge and probably life of working, because we've already got all the data centres we need anyway.
Still wouldn't be completely redundant because you guys take care of the whole network and security, right? So.
Correct. No, I actually the ExpressRoute into the Sydney data centre.
Yeah.
Because then nobody in New Zealand will put the stuff there unless maybe they've got transcontinental, or like we have as organisations.
But that's it. They might still put stuff there because they might have applications running in Australia.
We have 500 people in Australia, 300 people in New Zealand. So we're looking at putting, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, what I hear, we have stuff in Australia because most of the transactions are processed by our Australian organisations, so it's better for us to connect over and for them to connect locally. And yes, it depends on the organisation, but that's how it's Microsoft is providing those positions because it's not the construction parts.
Right. I'll show you the file on my way when the data centre opens in New Zealand.
It's not a question for the wider group, but my scenario is hybrid cloud hosting for web applications, and our current data center is in Sydney. And we want to somehow connect, high-speed connectivity to the Azure data center in Sydney, which we can be able to develop in a restriction like that. Is ExpressRoute, our best option or our only option for pairing those data centers, assuming we want to keep the old limits and do this? Is that the best approach for that?
Okay, so whereabouts is your existing data center?
It's in Sydney.
Is it at Next DC? There's a few data centers that have got their own connectivity straight into Azure.
Really?
So you could potentially buy an ExpressRoute through one of those guys.
Yeah. But is that the only option, or is there another pairing option with me?
You've basically got your ExpressRoute or an IPsec VPN. They're the main two connectivity options.
So Equinix is the IXP that everybody goes through. Right. So if you can get to Equinix, you can get straight to Azure.
Yeah.
Okay. But then you've got the pain of doing it all yourself, whereas provider like Cordia or Snap or anybody else who's going to take care of all that painful.
Yeah. When you talk to any of the telcos again, I'll refer to the example. It's not easy doing the decades at times, is it? Yeah. We're used to it, that's what we do, but it's not easy. They're a huge organisation, so that's why I think it is.
Plus, you've got to have your own AS routes, IP addresses, and all the stuff to make it happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier to let somebody else take care of that work.
Yeah. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, actually, I think if you're going to go straight into Equinix, you've got to buy gig port as a minimum. If you just want 50 megs or something. Anybody else?
Yeah, great question.
Hand out some shirts.
Hand out some shirts.
There's a couple of questions then.
Oh, okay.
If we get to the end. Lovely.
Oh, no. Increases your wardrobe.
Thanks, Julian. Thanks, guys.
Look at the shirts. Sweet. Hi guys. So yeah, I'm Julian from Provoke. So my role at Provoke is IT manager. I look after all of our internal stuff. I'll give you a bit of a spin on our internal stuff in a sec. But if you're not familiar with Provoke, we're a Microsoft Gold partner. We do heaps of stuff in Azure, lots of cloud stuff, SharePoint, .NET Dev, Unified Comms, and any special project that our COO comes up with. The B special, as we call them. And there's supposed to be a really nice little globe, yeah, but it's all washed out because of the awesome contrast. But just go with me here. So we have 5 offices on 3 continents. Don't count the circles, doesn't add up to 5. I didn't produce this slide. This is a marketing slide. So we're around 160 here around the world. For the first 10 years, we've been around since 2001. For the first 10 years, we were NZ based only, Auckland and Wellington. And so, unsurprisingly, all of our stuff was here in Wellington. And then, 2011, we started the brave new venture of going offshore. We went up into the Philippines, Singapore, and up into Seattle. And so my kind of gig was to try and connect those countries into our NZ, all the way down the bottom of the country data centre, ideally on the smell of an oily rag, because obviously those little offices are in startup mode, little budget, big ask, big fun. And a lot of, I guess, what a big part of how we've delivered that is with Azure. We've got a reasonably decent data center presence down in Wellington. We've got a couple hundred servers doing a bunch of stuff for us. And we've got, I don't know, what have we got, 20-something servers up in Azure, and another number of other features. And this is just a random sample of some of the stuff we use on a day-to-day basis. We're a big consumer of Azure ourselves. We sell a lot of Azure for our customers. And so, yeah, we do heaps of Azure, to be quite honest. And our appetite for Azure just keeps growing. We started out literally with some VMs, I think over the public web, eventually went into the VPN thing. Azure AD, we're doing Office 365, so we kind of inherited Azure AD. And we started looking at backup stuff. We've got a Store Simple device. Is anyone familiar with a Store Simple device? Anyone come across one? Yeah. Store Simple is a cool little unit. It's sort of free if you get an Azure EA, sort of. But essentially it's I can say this now because the new one is, but it's essentially a SAN. It's got lots and lots of SSDs in it, it's got lots and lots of slower disks in it, and then it has a third tier, which is Azure. So you can use that as a backup device, or essentially you publish it as a cluster volume, and you can point whatever you want at it through anything that can consume a LUN. And so what we use ours for is essentially we publish it into heaps of our servers, and we then use that as a backup source or backup destination. And because of the SSD layer, it's really, really fast, really snappy. You can get your backups done really quick, and then as that fills up, shifts all that stuff off to the slower disks. So you've always kind of got nice fast disks available. So your performance is always really good, and it manages that transition. It also does some stuff around aging, so it looks at what you're using a lot and leaves it on the fast disks. It looks at what you're using a little bit, or when you're not often, shifts it onto the slow disks. So it balances out your performance, and then eventually it will age that right up and stick it in Azure automatically for you. So that's a really cool way of kind of leveraging those different performance layers, and the elasticity of Azure means effectively your backup storage is infinite. We threw a tape library away pretty much the day we bought it. Not that we had a tape library, but if we had one, we would have thrown it. I said something about something, but I forgot what it was. Doesn't matter. And so we do a whole bunch of other stuff. All the kind of usual SQL, cloud services. We've just started delving into operational insights and preview. Did I take it off here? Yeah, the RMS. We're just exploring Azure RMS at the moment. Obviously, as our appetite has increased, so too is our consumption over our network. And with great power comes a really disappointing user experience, because you end up with this on your network graphs if you're unfortunate, as we were. Nobody likes to see a flat line on their internet traffic. That means you've run out of capacity and your users are no longer happy. We're running, at that time, I think we were running 20 meg internet. We're now running 40 meg, and we still do that. And so we need a way of fixing that, because obviously that's not cool. Actually, yeah. So this is kind of one of the big cool reasons for why, reasons why that thing taps out is that we, as any IT, internal IT has to deal with, you've got your maintenance windows to manage your backup processes and get all of your data somewhere onto your backup devices. And we were no different, and because our backup destination was fundamentally Azure, we used our internet, and that was really easy when we had just New Zealand businesses, because we had a really big maintenance window. Basically it opened at 6 o'clock at night, closed at 8 in the morning, and we could do heaps of stuff over the internet. And then we went and did something silly and opened an office in Seattle, and our maintenance window got smaller and our data got bigger. And then we opened another one in the Philippines, and our maintenance window got really small, because all of our data lives in New Zealand. And so we're trying to squeeze even more data into an even smaller maintenance window, and you just can't do it. So eventually you stop backing your stuff up, because it just can't keep up. We had a business problem, and maintain performance levels, etc. But this one kind of sums it up. Really fussy users. It's a problem with working in an IT company that's full of IT people. They all know exactly what they want and why they can get it faster at home. But that kind of fundamentally that's sort of the thing. And actually, one of the most catastrophic days on our internet connection was during the World Cup, Football World Cup, when the backup was running, a lot of people were trying to stream the football, and we were trying to do some link conferences with America, all of which had a huge drain on our internet connection, and it just died, and that was unpleasant. So the obvious solution, and this is probably something that you may strike yourself, is really we need to offload that high volume traffic onto some other sort of connection, so that we've got plenty of headroom, plenty of capacity in our good old-fashioned internet for doing normal work, or looking up lolcats, or whatever, generating your memes. And today really you've got two options. Is you can just go and get another bit of copper, some sort of fibre or whatever you want, plug it in, and there's some internet, and just take those kind of heavy lifting systems and chuck them onto that other circuit, or do something a little more grown up and do something like Azure ExpressRoute, which is what we do, or are doing. So I should say that. So you mentioned before we're the second customer for Cordia. We are not finished yet. We are halfway through our implementation. We've run the first set of PowerShell commands. We've sent the service key away, and now we're just patiently waiting. So this is a real, I don't like complicated diagrams, it's a real basic, I guess, what does this look like in our environment? The diagram for Microsoft is all well and good, but I just like this version better because it's nice and simple. So the way that we pre-ExpressRoute, the way that we do our stuff, really simply, we have a firewall, we've got our servers internally, we have multiple connections up through Cordia, we've got our internet, we've got our SIP, we've got our WAN, and so any access to the internet is out via that firewall up through Cordia into the internet. All of our NZ locations use that one site for its internet access, so we'll route down to NZ. Yep.
So you just effectively dedicated some bandwidth to mission critical, including maintenance, so that when people want to do something like watch the World Cup.
Essentially. I mean,
that they can't interfere with that dedicated circuit.
More or less, yes. I mean, we're basically saying of what consumes our internet today, this much of it we know goes to a known source or destination, which is Azure. So we're going to carve that out, and we're going to free up that block for other stuff, and that is our generic day-to-day VAU internet access, including things like our link platform. We do a huge amount of link conferences up into the States and Philippines and a few other places. So which obviously leverages that internet connection. So it's essential that is uncongested as possible when we're doing big multi-party video conferences. Those can use 3, 4, 5 megabits for a given conference if you're running multiple video streams. So obviously you jam a big file upload into Azure, it's going to mess with that quite quickly.
So since it's the same piece of fiber,
so this is today, this is not Azure.
Yeah. So with ExpressRoute, though. Yeah. So it would be consuming some of our WAN bandwidth, but not the internet bandwidth.
So this is a really stylized version of what it looks like with our ExpressRoute. So essentially, Cordia runs another piece of copper, a secret circuit, secret connection, which today we're going to run into a router purely because the firewall doesn't support BGP until we upgrade it, and then it will. At which point we'll shuffle that sideways. Don't get too offended by my simple diagram. That's good. So we've got, so you could deliver that. That's no problem at all if you had a BGP capable firewall. We're obviously going to have to add a new private subnet here, so these two guys can talk to each other. And then that BGP pair that these guys talked about earlier will be set up between our router and Azure, the Azure DC. So over that connection. Cool. And then for our servers, anything that we decide we want to get from here to there via this guy, this is just a case of really configuring some static routes, just a routing configuration on our end, and away we go. We'll use that BGP pair session directly rather than going up through to through the general internet. So, and if we wanted to get more granular, we could make it so, this server here is only going to use this static route, this server here, because it's not doing heavy lifting, or I can't really think why we do that actually, to be honest, but if you had a need to say this server no, this server yes, you could very easily configure that sort of ACL relative to firewall. And we want to obviously make sure we're going through that firewall, as the Cordia boys pointed out. It's kind of important to have some firewall ACLs in place on that circuit. And that's essentially it. That's really all we're going to do. So, as I mentioned, we're halfway through the process. We've done our first cut of the 1,000 little service key. As soon as we can get that session up, we'll have our we'll do a little configuration at our end, or BGP config, and then it should be good to go. Yeah. That's about all I can tell you about it. And that's it. So the point of that really was just talking about why we want it, why we want to use it. Hopefully that resonates with some of you guys. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Does it? Anyone looking at that going, that really totally hits my issues, or something similar? Regan.
Your overseas offices, how are you connecting them back to New Zealand? Are you direct to New Zealand, or are you connecting them into Azure and then kind of back through to your New Zealand and your Azure stuff?
It's an evolving conversation. So today we run a mesh VPN network with. So we've got each of our offices have a site VPN between each one. So we've got a mesh there. We've also got existing Azure VPNs between New Zealand, Singapore, just putting one in between Seattle and Singapore at the moment, and we're probably going to go multi-site with that, go up to West US data center as well. So yeah, it's essentially we use a big cluster of VPNs. Not necessarily pretty today, but we're working on making that nicer now that multi-site VPN is an option. It's got heaps of it.
So basically you could use Azure as your hub and then spike everybody up with that as well?
We could, yep. Any other questions, anyone?
But given this is pretty fresh and probably going to be your Cordia's second customer, has there been much uptake? Maybe the Snap boys can talk, but any of your other customers interested in the ExpressRoute?
A lot of talk still.
Yeah, not actually much.
Yeah. So we've quoted a whole bunch, but yeah, so ask a few questions and we're quiet for a while. So I think it's still quite new sort of technology. So
you have a question for the area?
A lot of people are asking about it. A lot of people are still in that sizing up Australia as a destination. A lot of companies have moved there, have moved stuff from Singapore and the US to Australia, and they're finding, when we talk about latency and stuff, just moving from Singapore to Australia makes a big difference. Obviously, having a private connection, you just kind of nails that completely. But there's definitely a lot of people looking at Azure being in Australia now, looking at putting things on there, and with that, they're also considering the whole ExpressRoute on one side. But it really does take, if you're using the Azure site-to-site VPNs, using an ExpressRoute kind of takes away a whole management layer and headache layer away from you. So using a provider to do that's a pretty good thing. And then you can, if you go across the internet, you're at the mercy of the internet. So one day you could get a gig throughput to Australia, the next day the Cricket World Cup comes on, and then maybe you're down to 10 megs because everybody's streaming it. So if it's mission critical, you probably should have some sort of guarantee around the bandwidth. The people that are planning on putting a lot of stuff in Azure are definitely considering ExpressRoute when they think about it.
Yeah, there we go. The key is, as per my discussion with Julian over the last 6 months, and people are trying out Azure, and putting bits out there, with an internet connection, if it slows down a bit, it's not mission critical. When people are using our stuff at Cordia, dev and test types of things, you want to get performance because it's slowly developed up and analyzed, but it's not the end of the world. But now people are actually saying mission critical things up there, equally realising, well, okay, it's actually cost effective sometimes. And why wouldn't I get a problem management that I can control? It's just that evolutionary process is up.
If you've got multiple sites around New Zealand on an MPLS plan already, then Azure kind of is a no-brainer, right? It's just another extension of the scope on it.
Which is where, again, I don't see it without giving all my sales secrets or it's not really an opener, you talk to people around, and it's the majority we're getting traction through existing clients that we're now starting to look into that side of things. It's another branch, it's just another office. It's another branch.
So when Office opens up this month, actually, in Australia, is there a, I don't actually know, is there an ExpressRoute type offering into Office as well?
365.
Yeah.
It's a direct connection, isn't it?
Sorry?
Yeah, 365.
Yeah, but the Office data center is in the same place.
Yeah.
But ExpressRoute's obviously service into Azure. But I don't know whether there's an equivalent one into Office.
Because we've got a direct code with Microsoft with that, or just take it there anyway.
Yeah,
so
right.
whether they're actually that.
So you could carry people's Office traffic there on a dedicated link anyway if you needed to, right? Because as Office moves from Singapore to here, maybe that might accelerate push for people to have private connections through.
Yeah, because there's more of those that people use Azure.
Exchange.
Cool.
3 seconds of silence.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for all our presenters today. Really good summary of what ExpressRoute is and how it can help us out. Some really good questions too. We do have a little more clues to give away. Can you think of any good questions to ask, Nick?
I'm not the ExpressRoute guy.
What?
Said I'm not really the ExpressRoute guy.
No. Hey. Oh, there it is. So we've got T-shirts. We've got this. What is it? Bluetooth. Yeah, free white box. Not yet. What? Yeah. Azure branded Bluetooth speaker. Yep. Sounds good. So it's worth answering the question if we can just think of one. Cordia, have you got a good question to ask the audience?